The sound of trumpeting cut through the morning air, sharp and clear, before fading into the wide silence of the savannah. It was not a cry of alarm or pain, but one of joy, the kind of sound only a young elephant could make. At the edge of a watering hole, where the surface shivered with the first strokes of sunlight, a calf splashed into the shallows, sending rings of ripples dancing outward. Its little feet slapped the muddy ground, awkward but determined, while its trunk curled and uncurled as if learning its own language. Each splash, each clumsy movement, carried the unguarded innocence of a creature that had never yet met fear. The calf's ears flapped in uneven rhythm, like sails on a ship caught in shifting winds. It trumpeted again, the sound high-pitched and playful, before plunging its trunk beneath the water and blowing bubbles. Drops sprayed into the air, catching sunlight, scattering into sparks that shimmered like fireflies. Around the calf, the air smelled of wet earth and grass warmed by the dawn. It was a moment painted in gold, soft and fleeting, as though the savannah itself paused to listen. Not far away, the mother stood with her great frame towering over the calf, her shadow stretching long across the water. She was a fortress of muscle and memory, her tusks gleaming pale in the morning light. Yet her eyes were never at rest. They scanned the tall grasses, the tree line, the horizon beyond, searching for what could not yet be seen. A low rumble vibrated through her chest and into the ground, so deep it could be felt more than heard. It was not a call of fear, but a reminder, a mother's warning, wrapped in love. Stay close. Do not wander too far. The calf squeaked in response, as if answering in its own small way, then splashed again, careless and free, behind them. The rest of the herd moved in slow rhythm, their heavy steps stirring gentle clouds of dust that rose and caught the light. They swayed like waves across the plain, their movements calm and ancient, their trunks brushing the ground in unison. Older cows fanned their ears to cool themselves, while others touched trunks in gestures as old as time. From a distance, the herd looked unbreakable, a wall of strength, a fortress of flesh and ivory that nothing could penetrate. But within that fortress lay the calf, so small, so fragile, still learning the rules of a world that would not always be kind. Overhead, the sky was alive with wings. Birds circled in the brightening air, their cries weaving together into a chorus of sound. The chatter of starlings, the shriek of a hawk, the constant hum of insects waking with the sun. Life thrummed in every direction, each creature playing its part in the morning song. Yet beneath this noise was a silence that did not belong. It was the kind of silence so faint that only the oldest elephant might notice. The grass nearest the water stood still, too still, as though holding its breath. The baby did not notice. It dipped its trunk into the cool shallows again, this time blowing bubbles in longer bursts, amused by the strange sounds it made. The water rippled outward, carrying the calves' joy into a world that had learned long ago how fragile such moments could be. The mother shifted her stance, her weight pressing into the earth until the ground itself seemed to tremble. Her tusks glinted as she lowered her trunk and brushed it softly across her calf's back. The touch was more than comfort. It was connection. Elephants speak in ways that are not always seen, with low rumbles that travel through the soil, with touches that carry reassurance, with looks that hold entire stories. In that single gesture, the mother told her calf, "I am here. You are safe." The calf leaned into her touch, then squeaked again, its voice bright and unbroken. For a heartbeat, it seemed the savannah itself leaned closer, warmed by the innocence of the young. But danger was never far away. In the shadows of the tall grass, a hunter waited. The python's body was thick as a tree branch, its scales marked in greens and browns that melted into the earth. Coiled tight, it lay silent, every muscle wound like a spring. Its tongue flicked, tasting the air, reading the vibrations that rippled through the soil with each elephant's step. The adults were too powerful, too dangerous. They could crush bones with a single strike, impale with tusks sharpened over decades. But the calf, small and playful, straying just far enough from its mother's side. That was a chance worth waiting for. The python did not move. It did not need to. Time was its weapon, patience its greatest strength. While the herd relaxed at the water's edge, while the calf splashed and sprayed, the serpent listened. The moment would come. It always did. Meanwhile, the savanna breathed in light. Dust shimmered in the air, caught between earth and sun, as the herd gathered in quiet rhythm. The older cows drew closer to the calves, their trunks brushing over backs and faces. The sound of water mixing with the rumble of elephants created a harmony that spoke of calm, of safety. In the middle of it all, the calf sprayed a fine mist into the air, droplets scattering like diamonds before falling back to earth. For that brief instant, it was a fountain of joy framed in golden light. The mother stepped closer, her shadow stretching across the water until it wrapped her calf completely. She lowered her trunk once more, stroking along its back. The calf turned, pressing against her massive leg. And together they stood, mother and child, connected by something older than memory. Still, the silence whispered, the grass shifted, a ripple too subtle for the calf to see. Birds fell quiet, their wings no longer tracing patterns across the sky. Even the insects seemed to hum softer, as though the very air was holding its breath. Something was changing, something unseen but deeply felt. The mother raised her head, ears flaring slightly, her eyes sharp as they scanned the tall grass. She took another step forward, pressing herself closer to her calf, her body now a shield of flesh and bone. Her breath came steady, but her eyes carried a different story. She sensed it, a presence too still, a rhythm out of place. The calf did not notice. It lifted its trunk again, droplets spilling in the sunlight, scattering into tiny sparks. The world to the young was still joy, still wonder, still safe. But the python lay waiting. The camera of imagination lingers here, on the calf's play, on the mother's quiet vigilance, on the silence woven through the song of the savanna. Innocence and danger, side by side. Peace carrying the weight of what is yet to come. For now, the herd stands whole, the calf alive in its mother's shadow, the golden morning spilling across the land. But within the stillness of the grass, nature holds its breath, preparing its oldest question: who will survive when calm turns to chaos? And the savanna, vast and endless, waits in silence for the answer. The calf's scream tore through the savanna like lightning splitting the sky. A shrill, desperate cry that shook the air, sharp enough to silence every bird in the trees. Dust swirled where the grass had erupted, and there, at the center of chaos, an immense python coiled its way around the baby elephant, scales glistening like wet stone in the sun. The calf thrashed wildly, its small trunk flailing, hooves pounding the earth in terror. But with every frantic move, the serpent's grip tightened, each coil pressing deeper, stealing breath and freedom. The mother wheeled around in a storm of sound and fury. Her ears spread wide, flapping like sails in a raging wind. Her tusks cut through the haze of dust as she charged, the ground quaking under her weight. She struck, thrusting her trunk and tusks at the coils wrapped around her calf. The impact shook the python, but its hold did not loosen. Instead, the giant snake pulled tighter, muscles rolling like waves of iron. The herd closed in, a fortress of gray bodies. Trumpets echoed across the plain, deep, guttural roars of defiance and rage. Adult elephants stomped the ground, their feet slamming into the dirt with earth-shaking force. They flung dust into the air, creating a wall of haze to confuse and blind. But no matter their fury, the sight before them was unbearable. The calf's squeals weakening, its trunk curling in panic, its eyes wide with terror as the coils squeezed the life from its small frame. The python's head lifted high above the struggle, tongue flicking, jaws yawning wide as though tasting the fear in the air. It had hunted countless creatures before: antelope, warthogs, birds unlucky enough to stray too close. But never something like this. This was bold. This was madness. Yet it had succeeded in latching onto the weakest member of the herd, and now it was gambling everything on strength. The mother pressed in again, striking with her tusks, trying to wedge them between the coils. She groaned deeply, a sound more ancient than words, vibrating from the core of her body. She pushed, lifted, and slammed, but still the serpent clung, refusing to yield. For a moment, the savanna itself seemed to hold its breath. The herd's noise dimmed to a chorus of anxious rumbles, the calves' cries fading into strained gasps, the python's coils tightening with a terrible rhythm. Despair crept into the air like a slow-moving shadow. The calf's trunk fell limp. Its small body sagged under the crushing grip. Dust clung to its wet skin, making it look smaller, weaker, almost fragile. The mother froze, her chest heaving, her eyes locked on her child. And in that moment, something shifted. The fury in her eyes burned brighter than fear. She made her choice, not to circle, not to wait for the herd, but to risk it all in one final charge. She reared back, tusks gleaming, trunk curled tight against her chest. The air trembled with her trumpet, so loud, so raw. It felt as though it came from the earth itself. Then she lunged forward with all the force of her massive frame, crashing down upon the coils with unstoppable weight. Dust exploded in a great cloud, stones cracking under her stomp. The serpent writhed in sudden pain, its scales grinding against the earth, its grip faltering for the first time. The herd roared in answer. Tusks and trunks struck together, a chorus of power. One female rammed her body against the python's midsection, pinning it down. Another used her trunk to pull at the coils, straining until the muscles began to loosen. The python hissed, a long, guttural sound of rage, and twisted violently, lashing its tail. But it was losing ground. Against one elephant, it may have prevailed. Against the herd, the family, it was overmatched. The calf gasped, a weak trumpet breaking through the dust. Its chest heaved, straining for air, eyes wide and wet. The mother redoubled her effort, pressing her full weight onto the coils, tusks driving deeper. At last, with a shuddering ripple, the python's grip loosened, one coil sliding free. The mother's trunk shot forward, wrapping around her calf's small body, pulling it close, cradling it against her chest as if to shield it from the world. The serpent, battered and heaving, thrashed in retreat. Its great body slipped through the dust like a dark river, vanishing into the tall grass it had emerged from. The herd followed only with their voices, trumpeting loud enough to carry across miles of savanna, a warning to every predator in earshot. This family would not be broken. The calf lay trembling, its small body coated in sweat and dust. It leaned heavily against its mother, pressing into her warmth, eyes half closed in exhaustion. She lowered her head and touched her trunk gently against its back, breathing slowly, deeply, as though willing her strength into the calf's fragile frame. Around them, the herd drew close, forming a tight circle. Their shadows fell across the calf like a wall of protection, the oldest females rumbling softly in reassurance. Silence slowly returned to the plains, broken only by the sound of breathing, heavy, steady, alive. The air hung thick with dust and tension, but also something else, relief. The herd, shaken but unbroken, had faced what seemed unthinkable, and though scars would remain, they had reclaimed what mattered most. The sun had shifted now, climbing higher, its light sharper and harsher on the golden grass. The watering hole glimmered nearby, but no one moved toward it. The herd stood still, protective, a fortress around the calf. For the mother, there was only her child, and the steady rhythm of its breath against her skin. She closed her eyes briefly, as if in silent thanks, her ears folding in gentle rest. The savanna had returned to quiet, but it was a different kind of quiet than before. Not the soft peace of dawn, but the heavy silence after a storm. Dust still drifted through the air, curling into rays of sunlight. While in the distance, vultures circled lazily, having heard the noise of struggle but finding nothing to claim. And in that silence, the truth lingered. The wild was both cruel and kind. Life here balanced on the edge of every heartbeat. But for now, one small heartbeat, fragile yet determined, continued. The baby leaned into its mother's side, eyes closing at last. And as the herd stood guard, unmoving, the savanna seemed to bow its head in respect. The calf's small body sagged in its mother's embrace, chest rising in shallow bursts, skin slick with sweat and dust. For a heartbeat, all seemed suspended, the python's coils slackening, the herd frozen, the savanna itself holding its breath. Then came the sound, a bellow so fierce, so raw, it split the air like thunder. The mother elephant hurled her tusks into the earth, grinding them against the thick, scaled body of the snake with unrelenting force. Each strike shook the ground, each shove fueled by fury and fear. The python writhed, its muscles rippling in waves, but the grip that had once seemed unbreakable faltered at last. The mother's trunk swept beneath her calf, curling under its belly. With a strength born of desperation, she lifted, pulling the baby against her broad chest. The calf's cry broke through the dust, a trembling trumpet, weak yet alive. It pressed into her, searching for the sound of her heartbeat, the rhythm that had always meant safety. The python hissed, its jaws gaping wide, but its courage was spent. With a slow, shuddering retreat, it slid back into the grass, scales rasping against dry stalks, vanishing as if it had never been there. It left no sound, only a scar on the earth and the memory of terror carved into the herd's hearts. The elephants did not give chase. Instead, they gathered close, drawing into a tight circle around mother and child. Massive bodies formed a living wall, tusks pointed outward, trunks swaying in warning. Their voices dropped from trumpets of rage to low rumbles, soft, steady notes that rolled like distant thunder. It was not triumph they sang, but relief. Survival. The dust hung heavy in the air, caught in beams of sunlight, twisting in slow spirals before settling. The savanna seemed to exhale, the sharp tension fading into a hush. Yet the silence carried weight. Every elephant stood still, their eyes fixed on the calf. The smallest one of their herd had come within a breath of death, and though it had been pulled back, the shadow of loss lingered. The mother lowered her trunk, sweeping it gently along her calf's back. She touched him again and again, as though to reassure herself that he was truly there. The calf trembled under her touch, his thin tail flicking, knees wobbling with weakness. Still, he leaned into her, pressing his cheek against her leg, refusing to be separated. The herd's matriarch, older and wiser, stepped close. She placed her trunk lightly across the mother's shoulders, a gesture of shared strength. Her deep rumble vibrated through the ground, a voice as old as the savanna itself. "You are not alone. We are with you." Minutes passed like hours. Slowly, the calf's breathing steadied. His ears flapped weakly, stirring the dust from his skin. His trunk reached upward, brushing clumsily against his mother's face. She responded with a soft trumpet, low and tender, almost like a lullaby. Around them, the herd shifted, easing back, but still holding their protective circle, their eyes sweeping the grass for any sign of movement. The watering hole lay just beyond, its surface shimmering beneath the sun. The herd began to move toward it, slowly, carefully, their formation unbroken. The mother guided her calf forward, her trunk curled protectively around his back. Step by step, he followed, his legs shaky but determined. Each movement was a victory, each breath a gift reclaimed. When they reached the water, the calf bent his knees and drank, the cool liquid washing the dust from his tongue. His reflection rippled in the pool, a small body marked by struggle, standing beside the towering shadow of his mother. She lowered her trunk too, drawing water and spraying it gently across his back, rinsing away the dirt, the sweat, and the memory of coils that had nearly taken him. The herd joined, drinking deeply, their sides heaving as tension slowly melted into calm. Birds returned to the branches, their calls tentative at first, then louder as the silence of fear broke. The savanna stirred again, life continuing, indifferent to the battle that had raged minutes before. But within the circle of elephants, nothing was indifferent. They had stood at the edge of loss and returned together. They had seen death close its jaws and been strong enough to open them again. The calf's survival was not just his own, it belonged to the whole herd, to the bond that tied them like roots beneath the earth. As the sun climbed higher, the shadows shortened, stretching thin across the plain. The calf, now steadier, leaned against his mother's side and closed his eyes, lulled by her steady breath. She stood over him like a monument, scarred by battle, trembling with exhaustion, but unbroken. Her ears shifted with the wind, her gaze never leaving the grass, yet her trunk rested lightly across her child, a living promise. "You are safe. I will not fail you." The herd began to move again, slowly drifting back into the golden expanse of savanna. Dust lifted beneath their feet, rolling in soft clouds that caught the light. From above, they looked like ancient travelers, carrying with them the oldest truth of the wild, that survival is written not in strength alone, but in love, in courage, in the unyielding will to protect. The camera of the mind pulls wide, leaving behind the calf nestled in his mother's shadow, the herd forming their timeless march across the plains. The python is gone, swallowed by the grass, but its presence lingers in the scar of trampled earth, in the memory of fear. Yet against that memory stands something stronger, the sight of a baby elephant breathing, alive, wrapped not in coils, but in the arms of family. The wilderness stretches endless and untamed, golden light spilling over the horizon. It does not pause, does not mourn, does not celebrate. It simply is. But within this fragile circle of giants, something rare has unfolded, a defiance of death, a victory of love. The final image lingers, the mother's trunk draped across her calf, their shadows fused on the ground as one. The savanna exhales, and for a moment, eternity bends toward mercy.